Welcome to Oakwood Estates, where the lawns are manicured, the fences are white, and every house looks like it came straight out of a magazine. It's the kind of perfect suburb you see in movies, right down to the meticulously trimmed hedges. But lurking behind this flawless facade is a force more powerful than any city ordinance. A man who wields a clipboard like a scepter of power. Arthur Penwright, the HOA president. Arthur wasn't just a resident. He was the self-appointed guardian of suburban perfection. His daily patrols were legendary. He'd measure grass with a ruler, scrutinize trash can placement, and inspect every shingle for signs of wear. To the residents of Oakwood, Arthur's clipboard was a symbol of impending doom, a harbinger of fines and public shaming. And into this perfectly controlled world moved Brooks, an engineer with a love for tinkering and a blissful ignorance of the iron-fisted rule he was about to encounter. Brooks had just bought his dream home, a lovely two-story with a yard big enough for his projects. He was excited, ready to become part of the community. His first act as a new homeowner, installing a new mailbox, he chose a sleek, modern design in a stylish charcoal gray. It was sturdy, functional, and he thought, quite handsome. He was wrong. The very next morning, as Brooks enjoyed his coffee on the porch, he saw Arthur marching up his driveway, clipboard in hand, a deep scowl etched on his face. Arthur didn't even say hello. He just slapped a bright orange violation notice onto the new mailbox. Section 4, Paragraph B of the Oakwood Estates bylaws. Arthur declared, his voice dripping with condescension. Mailboxes must be uniform black. This is gray. That'll be a $200 fine, payable within 7 days. He didn't wait for a response, just turned on his heel and continued his patrol, leaving Brooks stunned and holding the ticket. A $200 fine for the wrong shade of gray. This was his welcome to the neighborhood. Brooks, being a reasonable guy, decided to comply. He was new, after all, and didn't want to make waves. He spent his Saturday repainting the mailbox a deep, regulation black. He even triple-checked the bylaws online to make sure he got it right. He felt a small sense of victory, of having appeased the neighborhood tyrant, but his relief was short-lived. The next week, another orange slip appeared. This time, it was for his lawn. Grass height exceeds the maximum allowable 3 inches by 1/4 of an inch. Arthur had written, with the damning measurement circled in red ink. Another $100. This was the beginning of a relentless campaign. First, it was the grass. Then, his trash cans were allegedly left out 37 minutes past the designated collection window. Another fine, he received a violation for a small, decorative garden gnome his niece had given him, deemed an unapproved lawn ornament. Each fine came with a public posting on the community bulletin board, complete with Brooks's address. Arthur wasn't just enforcing rules, he was trying to humiliate him. Brooks tried everything. He talked to Arthur, trying to reason with him. He apologized. He explained. He pleaded for a little leeway as a new resident. But Arthur was immovable, a wall of petty bureaucracy. He seemed to take a special, sadistic pleasure in finding new, ever more ridiculous infractions. Brooks started talking to his neighbors and discovered he wasn't alone. Everyone had an Arthur story. The family who got fined because their holiday lights were multicolored instead of pure white. The retiree who was cited for a crack in his driveway that was barely visible. But it was during one of these hushed conversations that a neighbor, Mrs. Gable, dropped a bombshell. "You know," she whispered, looking around nervously, "I've seen fancy landscapers at Arthur's house every week. And a pool cleaning service. I always wondered how he afforded that on his retirement." The HOA's financial reports, which were supposed to be public, were always vague, listing huge sums under community maintenance and administrative expenses. A light bulb went off in Brooks's head. An engineer by trade, he was a man who lived by logic, data, and systems. If Arthur was a broken system, Brooks was going to find the bug. The mission changed. It was no longer about survival. It was about justice. He started his own surveillance. He'd take early morning jogs past Arthur's house, discreetly snapping photos with his phone. He documented the expensive non-uniform landscaping, the custom-built gazebo in the backyard that definitely wasn't in the HOA's approved plans, and the brand-new luxury SUV that seemed a bit rich for a retired accountant. The real breakthrough came when Brooks used a simple trick. He knew the community sprinkler system, which was paid for by HOA dues, ran on a specific schedule. He noticed Arthur's lawn was always perfectly green, even during a dry spell when water rationing was in effect for everyone else. Using a cheap moisture meter, he tested the soil. While everyone else's lawn was dry, Arthur's was practically a swamp. He was using community water, meant for common areas, to keep his own private lawn looking like a golf course. Brooks cross-referenced the water usage reports he managed to obtain from a sympathetic contact at the water company with the HOA's vague maintenance expenses. He had the evidence, but he knew confronting Arthur directly would be useless. Arthur would just deny it, shred the evidence, and use his power to silence him. Brooks needed more than proof. He needed a public spectacle. He needed to trap the trapper, and that's when the engineer's mind really went to work. He decided to build a trap, not of steel and springs, but of code, sensors, and Arthur's own rigid rules. The plan was beautiful in its simplicity and devastating in its potential. The upcoming annual HOA meeting was the perfect stage. It was held in the community clubhouse, and Arthur always made a grand entrance, basking in the authority he held over his neighbors. Brooks focused on one of the most absurdly specific rules in the HOA handbook. Rule 7 to C. All automatic garage doors must be fully closed between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. A violation will be incurred if the door is open for any duration within this time frame. It was a rule Arthur enforced with zeal, often driving around in the dead of night to catch violators. Brooks built a small, inconspicuous device using a Raspberry Pi, a Wi-Fi module, and a laser sensor. He discreetly mounted it on a public light post across the street from Arthur's house, perfectly aimed at his garage door. The device was programmed to do one thing: detect if Arthur's garage door was open, even for a second, between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. If it detected an opening, it would automatically take a time-stamped photo, upload it to a public web server, and, for the grand finale, send a notification to a large screen Brooks planned to set up at the HOA meeting. He called it Project Karma. He tested the system for a week. Sure enough, Arthur, who often left for his own late-night patrols, or returned late, would open his garage door for a minute or two, well within the violation window. The trap was set. The night of the HOA meeting arrived. The clubhouse was packed. Arthur stood at the podium, smug as ever, droning on about fiscal responsibility and the importance of following the rules to maintain property values. Brooks sat quietly in the back, his laptop open. As Arthur began a lecture about a recent fine for improper recycling bin placement, Brooks initiated the final phase of his plan. On a large projector screen behind Arthur, which was supposed to be showing a boring slideshow of community finances, a new image suddenly appeared. It was a crystal-clear, time-stamped photo of Arthur's garage door, wide open. The timestamp read 11:43 p.m. A second photo flashed, then a third, all from different nights. A web address appeared below the photos, where dozens more were being uploaded in real time. A murmur went through the crowd. Arthur faltered, his speech cut short. He turned and saw the evidence of his own hypocrisy broadcast for all to see. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Hey, that's against Rule 7 to C." Another yelled, "I got a $300 fine for that last month." Arthur's face went from pale to beet red. He was caught, exposed by his own ridiculous rule and the elegant engineering of his newest resident. The meeting descended into chaos as years of pent-up frustration erupted from the residents. They weren't just angry about the garage door, they were angry about the fines, the bullying, and the stolen funds. The aftermath was swift. An emergency audit was called. Arthur was removed as president in disgrace, and the HOA bylaws underwent a massive common-sense overhaul. The final scene. Brooks, weeks later, sitting in a lawn chair in his perfectly imperfect yard, his mailbox is charcoal gray. A cheerful garden gnome sits by his flower bed. He sips his coffee, watching his new automated sprinkler system, one that waters his lawn exactly to code, and not a drop more, and smiles. The neighborhood was finally quiet, not with the silence of fear, but with the peaceful hum of freedom. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story of sweet, engineered revenge, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more videos. See you next time.